Fistful of Lead, Horse and Musket. I want to see how these rules handle a fight between cavalry and mounted. Being the scientifically minded sort of guy, that means I get to do an experiment. Let's take a look at our forces. Today, I'll be going a little easy on all of the special abilities for these two forces. In the back, you can see we've got a unit of British. These are Essex figures. They are, what are they? It says here, light dragoons. So they are all armed with swords and pistols, with the exception of this bannerman, who we're going to call that banner equivalent to a pike. It's got a 2-inch reach, and it does +1 to wound in melee. The swords, in the case of Horse and Musket, the swords don't really do anything for you. In the fantasy rule set, they do give you a +1 to melee, but not so much here. The only two, we've got 3 different kinds of figures. We've got a leader here. This is a veteran leader. He is mounted. He's got dodge. So if you shoot at him and miss, he gets to move 5 inches into cover. We've also got a bannerman. He's classed as a bugler. Same ability. He can use both of his actions to rally everyone to him, and all of the figures on his side of the fight get to make a free recovery roll. Things get a little more interesting, and then we've got 3 guys that are they're horsemen. That's all we got. In Horse and Musket, your leaders get 3 abilities, plus the leadership ability. Your second in command gets 2 abilities, and then your regular troopers only get 1 ability, and we took mounted for each of these 3, so they don't get anything. They just have a pistol with a range of 6 inches or 12 inches for long range. These foot dragoons have left their horses somewhere off the battlefield. We have a leader, and they are all rangers, which means they ignore terrain penalties. The 3 guys here, the 3 guys on the right, as you look at it, they all have muskets, and that's it. Because everyone is a ranger on the part of the French, they ignore the terrain penalties, and they're +1 to melee when they are in rough terrain. Our leader is cool-headed, so when he tries to recover from shaken, he gets a +1. And then in addition to that, he's a veteran, so he's going to roll D12s on all of his rolls. And we've got an actual drummer. The drummer figure is an actual drummer. Hey, how about that? So like the bannerman for the British, this French drummer is going to get to sound the advance, the retreat, sound the quit sweating, get fighting, boyos. Now, as far as the scenario is concerned, we're going to play a King of the Hill episode. Battle. There ain't going to be no dang bobbly on this one. Question is, with a battlefield like this, who's going to come on where? And what we'll do is we'll play, at the end of turn 6, whoever has more guys standing on this hill wins. Let's talk about terrain effects a little bit. The woods, anybody can move through the woods. Even the mounted troops. They're just small copses of trees. They do slow movement by half. Costs 2 inches to cross 1 movement. Remember the rangers, that doesn't apply. It only applies to the horses. All of the trees are movable. This is just showing us where the template is. The trees are merely for aesthetic value across the board. Likewise, the fields down here, and you can't see it, but there is a stone-walled field. That may come into play. The stone wall costs 2 inches to get across. Well, let's call it, 2 inches to get across. It does count as hard cover. And then, of course, we got the house here. If you're standing looking around a corner, we can count that as hard cover. The hills are gentle hills. They do slow movement by half, but they only block line of sight halfway across. So if your figure is standing here, he can see the closest half of the hill and nothing beyond that. No figure standing beyond that. So that leads us to the question of, and then there's no bonus for being uphill or downhill on this one because, as I said, it's a fairly gentle hill. So the question becomes, who is going to come on the field where? And to answer that, we're going to do very simple. We are going to nominate that the British are going to come in. They're going to start within 3 inches of board edge on a 1, 2, 3, 4. No, let's do 8. I like the corners too. So wherever the British come in, we're going to call it 1, starting right there, and just go clockwise. The French are going to come in on the opposite side. So the British come in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the British horses are going to come in on the west, and the French foot dragoons are going to come in on the east. Our initial deployment is a little odd. What I did for each figure, remember I'm a solo wargamer, I want to see what happens. I rolled for every figure. On a 1 or a 2, I started them on the southern corner. On a 4 through 6 in the center of the table, nearest to the hill. and then on a 7-8 in the upper quadrant. So you can see that the French have opted to bring their leader with 2 dragoons, foot dragoons, down in the southern corner. The drummer and another foot dragoon have started up on this hill. The British, if we slide on over, have spread out a little bit more. You've got 2 light dragoons in the north, you've got another light dragoon in the middle, and then the leader and his drummer slash colorman are down here in the south. So we don't have any extra cards being dealt out today. And remember that the horsemen only have a range of 12 inches, but the foot dragoons have a range of up to, with that musket, 24 inches. So a little bit of an advantage in the shooting. And we'll deal out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards to the British. And we'll deal out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards to the French. We call out, does anybody have any kings that want to go? And yeah, boy howdy, the British have a king. And the French do not. They want to see where these guys are going. So the first move for the British will be to bring a dragoon. They can move 5 inches on foot. We bring these cards a little bit out of the way here for the British. And hopefully we can line them up so you can see them. With a range of 24 inches, he's got it. We're going to bring 1 dragoon up here. He doesn't have a clear line of sight. That being the case, we'll bring our first dragoon. We can bring him down off the hill, and he's got a clear line of sight at the leader. Now, bear in mind the leader's face is looking this way. The horse, to fit it on the figure here, he's a little bit cockeyed. The horse is aiming diagonally, but go with it. And we'll open up with a shot. Now, because this foot dragoon has moved, he's just within range. It's 23 inches. Because the foot dragoon moved, because it is long range, that shot is going to be, he needs an 8 or better. And with an 8, he manages to hit. Except, there are a number of fancy rules for the cavalry. We probably should have gone over those before we started rolling dice, but I like rolling dice. For the British, on a hit, you have to roll. It's actually, oh, you know what? I forgot. It's -1 to shoot riders. He needs a 9 or a 10 to hit. And that means that 8 becomes a miss. And because he was firing at the leader has dodge. The leader now gets a free 5-inch movement towards cover, which will take him straight along there. Hey, nice thinking there. Well, I guess that's why he doesn't rate, does he? Why don't we give every time, at the end of every turn, we'll count up how many guys are on the hill. So it's not, should we do every other turn? Because I think 6 turns might go, everybody might be dead. It might turn into just a random bash. Whereas if you have guys on top of that hill at the end of a turn, you score 1 point. No, we're going to call it the end of the 6 turns. That means it is now time for queens. Does anybody have any queen that wants to go? No? How about jacks? Well, yeah, we got a jack over here. We are going to bring this drummer 10 inches. He can move to here if he so chooses. Remember that the horseman can move. He's going to stop inside the woods. That will give him a little bit of protection. You do get that -1. We'll say he's taking cover. If you're in the woods, there's no bonus for the to hit, but your wound roll is at +1 because you are assumed to be taking cover. Likewise, with the stone wall, it'll be -1 on both of those, and hiding behind the house will be on both of those as well. So that foot dragoon has moved all the way up, and that is his... what did we move? We moved the king. That's the jack of hearts. And then the jack of clubs gets to go, and that jack of clubs is for the British. And we'll bring these dragoons can move a total of 16 inches. So we'll bring the first, we'll actually do 2 jacks. We're going to bring them up together. and we move them individually. They can move 8 inches, so that's 8 to there, and it'll be another 8. We'll bring them, we'll stop right here with each of these guys. I think that's far enough. Then we call out, does anybody want to go on 9s? Yeah, we got a 9 of diamonds, 9 of clubs, and a 9 of hearts. Hearts goes first. That's our leader here. Well, no, we're going to bring our bannerman up, and he can move a total of 16 inches. So we'll bring him around. Oh, you know, this will be a... We're going to be fighting to the death. We're going to bring him around to here. That's 12 inches to there, and then another 4 inches to here. That's the first of the 9s. Then the 9 of diamonds gets to go. And it is perhaps no surprise that the foot troops are going to be behind the 8 ball for most of this. 10 inches will bring him to here. And then the other 9 for the British will go. There's 2 inches to get across this leg of the woods. So if we subtract that 2 inches out, we'll call it, that becomes 5. So we can move a total of 11 inches altogether, including that 5, that penalty. But we'll stop him right there. So he's out of line of sight. And then we have the 8s. This is going to be the... Should we move the leader first? The leader can move 10 inches. We're going to bring all of our foot dragoons up into these woods, I think. And then the 4 goes, which is this leader. And he is... should he set off in hot pursuit? He can move 8 inches. We're just going to bring him up to there. And then the last move will be for the other rifleman down here. He's going to come up there. So we've got, everybody has moved that first turn. Let's push in and take a closer look at the burgeoning firefight over the hill. The cards have been shuffled, and now they've been cut, and we have to deal out our 5 and 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the British. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the French. Who wants to go first? Do we have any kings? Do we have any kings? No, we don't. What we do? Yeah, we do. We have 1 king of clubs. So the British get to move somebody first. Who is going to be the one that, oh, you know, I wonder if we don't want... This could be a game of chicken. We do not want our horsemen to try to hold ground. Horsemen are designed for taking ground, not holding it. Yeah, I know we have an ace. We're going to save that for something special. We're going to... Who's within 8 inches of this guy? Our leader is. Our bannerman is. He's going to ride 8 inches. He's got a range... He actually has a range of 2 inches on melee. He exerts a zone of control of 2 inches. So by putting him here, he is able to attack this drummer. They're going to do a round of combat, and it's going to be 2 dice. I've got a red and a blue. We're rolling D10s to see what happens. The red gets a 4. The blue gets a 0. That is a very unfortunate roll because this mounted guy has got a total bonus of 3. He charged, which means he gets a +1. He gets a +1 if mounted. He's got a better weapon, which means he's got a +1. So this 4 becomes a 7. The 20 becomes a 10. Zeros or 10s on this, meaning the horseman lost by 3. So the horseman now has to make a wound check at +1. What do you know about that? And a 1 + 1 is 2, which means he winds up shaken for having lost that melee. Not only that, but the drummer is able to swap places with that mounted figure should he choose. He doesn't want to. When you win a melee in this game, you can either stay locked in combat, push the loser back up to 2 inches, well, he's already at 2 inches, or switch places with the loser. Or you can stay locked in combat and close the distance between you, which negates the effect of that lance for this horseman. And we're done with that melee. Oh, by the way, he also had a +1, So the real different, because he was in terrain, he's a ranger in rough terrain, he gets an additional +1. The Foot Dragoon won by 4, which is still a +1 on that wound check. Okay, great. Well, now we're on to, that was kings. Now we're on to queens. Anyone? No. How about jacks? Yeah, we got a jack over here. We got a jack of diamonds, and look at this. We also have another jack of, what is it? There's another jack of clubs. Is that the one that gives you the jack of clubs gives you a +1 in combat too? Is it all jacks? It's the one-eyed jacks. Hearts and spades give you +1 to shooting, and diamonds and clubs. So we'll call that a club. The diamond, well, we'll call them both diamonds. This diamond gets to go first. And we are going to charge into combat with this rifleman right here. He is going to race through the woods and join with his buddy. And now we've got a 2-on-1 situation. All 3 figures are going to roll dice. We need to roll 3 dice. Obviously, the red is for the red coat. The crystal blue is for the drummer, and this solid blue is for the dragoon who just closed into melee. Remember that he can charge into combat that 5 inches because he ignores the movement penalty for the rough ground. Our result is an 8 for the primary attacker and a 4 for the secondary, and an 8 for the mounted. Things get a little complicated here. The mounted guy doesn't get the benefit of the pike because he is already in close-up melee. He is also at -1 for this shock die, but he does have the better weapon and he is mounted, so he gets a +1 for that. So altogether, the mounted trooper is going to be at an even roll. He winds up with a result of an 8. The Foot Dragoon charged, he's going to wind up with a roll of a 9. And then this guy on the ground is going to wind up with a roll of 4. So first we'll roll for the wound for the guy on the horse. In the melee. Oh, wait a second. No, that's not right. Hey, no, look at that. I am right. It's when a mounted figure is wounded, it falls off the horse. Shock doesn't do that. So we're back to the fact that the Foot Dragoon won by a single point, which means the wound roll is going to be at -1 for the shock. So this is the British rolling for wound. He gets a total result of 4. He gets another point of shock. And that's it. The drummer now lost by a total of 4 points, so he has to make a wound roll. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh boy, I forgot one. Outnumbered for every guy past the first. It doesn't actually change anything because our numbers still are off. There's a 2-point spread, and it doesn't make a difference in this case. But I think we're done. +1 to the die roll for each wound. For that wound roll, it's -1 for each wound or shock marker the figure has. Wait a minute. You do get a -1, but nothing's going to push us up to a 6. So that is simply a second shock marker on that dragoon. And we're going to now push him back an inch, or 2 inches, like so. Then it becomes time for the British dragoons to go, and we'll bring up some help over here. This is with a saber, and 8 inches will bring him into combat with the drummer again. So this is a straight-up combat. However, it's going to be at a total of +3 to the red coat. He rolls a 10 for a total of 13. The Foot Dragoon is no longer in the rough terrain, so he winds up with an 8. That is going to be a total differential of 5, which leads to a wound roll of +2 for the drummer. And on a 10, he is taken out of action. First blood to the Dragoons. That is... Oh. Yeah, that's it. Then we have... So who was that? That was this Jack. In fact, it's a total differential of 6. But again, it doesn't make a difference. So we've used... 3 guys have gone now. 1, 2, 3... No, there's a 4th guy. Who was the other one that went? We did 2 over here. We did 2... Oh, we did the King. We did the Jack. We did the other Jack. I missed one, didn't I? We'll call that a 9 for that second Frenchman that went. We're on 9, so the French get to go. Oh, and that... Oh, this is the guy that... He's out of ammo, so that's why we charged with him. We'll circle this guy around 5 inches, and we'll take a shot with him. He is now out of ammo. And he is shooting at a rider. He's at -1, but at close range, that is going to be a what do we got here? He needs a 5 up, is all it is. And on a 5, he hits. On an 8 up, he hits the horse. He does not. He hits the rider. And the rider now has to make a wound check at, I guess it's an even wound check. And a 9 puts him out of action. So there's another out of action for you. Now we go on 9s. Who's going next? Well, it's got to be one of those. Oh, that was the 9, wasn't it? Now we go down to 7s. And we'll bring... We want to protect this guy, I think. We don't have anybody else with line of sight to any of these foot dragoons. So maybe what we do is chase one of them off. I'm going to bring this foot dragoon 8 inches around to here, and then he can reach 8 inches. He can charge this guy. So we have another foot dragoon. He's charged into combat. He's fighting with a sword, and he's mounted. He is going to be at a total of +2. Although he's fighting with a 7, he gets a reroll on this turn. So we roll for our melee, and we're going to go ahead and take advantage of that 7. The reroll gives us a result of a 10 versus a 6. The 10 gets bumped up to a 12 for the charge, for being mounted. And that differential of 6 means the wound check is going to be on a +2. The French Dragoon, the Foot Dragoon rolls an 8, and an 8 on the wound chart is wounded. So we'll drop a wound. He falls down, and the French Dragoon is going to... Do we trade places, or do we just stay as is? He's going to elect to push the loser back 2 inches to there. So they are out of contact. British player is concerned. He's only got a 4 and a 3. He knows he just played a 7. These could be 5s or 6s. As it is, the 4 of spades means that we're going to get to use this leader next. And the leader's not going to move. He is going to take a shot with his pistol that has a range of 6 inches. You can see we are within close range. He's going to hit on a 4 up, although he's shooting at a rider, so he needs a 5 up to hit. And with a 1, he misses. Oh, he needs a 4 up to hit, actually. And not only that, but he is out of ammo for the rest of the game. Took a time to aim. Now he's done. Now it goes to the 4 of hearts, and we're going to move this horseman up to here, and he's going to take a shot with his pistol at this guy, who is also out of ammo. I have, I'm going to put a little blue marker under my leader, who is down to his sword, and I'm going to put a blue marker under this guy, who is taking a shot with his pistol, and that pistol is going to hit on a... Now, it would be 4 up because it's close range. Man, I think that's it. I think that's the only one we got to worry about. For shooting, it's going to be... Shooter is mounted. Oh, it's a -1. And that's it. -1. You need a 5 up to hit. Oh, it's a 5 up to hit. Oh, look at that. But he's at -1, so that becomes a 4. That is a miss right there. And then it becomes the time for the 3s. The last figures to go will bring this guy. Will bring this guy into the woods. He'll come up to 5 inches, and he's going to take a shot. This Foot Dragoon moves first. He's going to take a shot at close range at this Light Dragoon, and he needs a 5 up. He's shooting at a. He actually needs a 6 up to hit because he's firing at a guy that's mounted, and he misses, and that's going to be the end of his turn. And then the last is going to be our leader will ride up the 8 inches and take a shot with his pistol down here. 7 is going to be a hit, even though he moved. He is within 6 inches. That hit is going to be a straight up wound roll, and on a result of a 6, this Foot Dragoon falls down wounded. And that is the end of the second turn. The Light Dragoons have the advantage here, as the Foot Dragoons made the mistake of coming out of the woods. Still anybody's game. If the Foot Dragoons can get a pair of Queen of Hearts, they may be able to stand up quick enough to respond in kind. The only damage we've got a very surprised Bannerman here. And unfortunately for recovery efforts, for the French, they are without their drummer. 4 cards. 4 cards for the British. We get an 8, a 3, a queen, and a queen. Quite the opposite. Who's going to go first? We're going to use a Queen of Hearts to try and stand somebody up. We're going to try to stand this guy up, but we have a Queen of Clubs that's going to get to go too. Queen of Hearts goes first. This old boy gets to stand up, and he loses his wound. He catches his second wind, and then everybody's fired off. They all went off. He's going to have to run away, I think. He's going to move 5 inches into the woods. And that's about all he can do. He's going to take his I need to reload marker with him. And that's it for that queen. Then the other queen is going to be this one, who will ride 8 inches and make contact with the French leader. We have, now the French leader, remember, he's a veteran, so I made a mistake. He rolled a D10 to shoot. He should have rolled a D12. Going to be a D10 versus a D12. We get a result of a 9 for the Foot Dragoon, and he's done. We get a result of a 10 for the Light Dragoon, and the British gets to add a total of 1 for being mounted, 1 for... Now, they're both carrying swords, but because he's mounted, his counts as the better weapon. That's a total of +3, meaning we've got a total differential of 4. So the leader now makes a wound check, and because he's a veteran, he rolls the D12. He gets a result of 5, and as a result of the +4, he is merely shaken. So a miraculous avoidance there, but he's not going to get away with that again because he now has a -1 on his deal. That was the first move for that French Dragoon, so he is able to get out of dodge, and he says, I'm going to ride on past. That becomes essentially a ride-by attack. That's the Queen of Hearts. Clubs, rather. Oh, I forgot the Queen of Hearts here gets to go. Now, this lets you recover from a wound. Hearts goes first. That was the Queen of Hearts. The Queen of Clubs gets to go next. And for that, we're going to make a recovery roll. No, we're going to ride up and we're going to stab this guy on the ground. We're going to try to put him out of the fight for once and for good. This cavalryman has already fired his pistol, so there's nothing else he can do there. But because he is attacking a fella that's on the ground, he is going to get an additional... Well, the guy on the ground has an additional -1. So the French Dragoon has a total of -1 for the wound, -1 because he's on the ground, total of -2. That 4 becomes a 2. The guy on the horse gets a total of +3. He rolled a 5, but he has charged for the 6. He's mounted for the 7, and he has the better weapon for the 8. So total differential of 6 means this guy on the ground has to roll a total of, well, he's going to be rolling on the wound chart. That's a D10 roll. Let's just see what happens. That's a 3. It becomes a 4 for the wound, and a 5 for the being prone, and I think it's a 6, which results in his second wound being applied. Then we call out, who wants to go next? Who's got jacks, 10s, 9s, 9 of clubs? Who wants to go next? We already moved this guy. We'll reload this guy, and we have a free reload? We're going to save that. We're going to bring our leader across the woods. He can only move 8 inches because of that shock marker. He could get rid of it. He could spend his whole turn getting rid of the shock marker. Instead, he's going to race over, and he's going to try to rescue his buddy here on the edge of the woods. We will give him credit for being a foot dragoon in the woods, which negates the shock marker. He is attacking with his D12, and we're going to have to roll for the dragoon that's on the ground. Now, this dragoon is going to be fighting at a -3 altogether, and our leader is going to be fighting at a +2 altogether. The guy on the horse is going to be at it's +1. Each of these guys gets a +1. So the -3 becomes a -2. The leader is at +2. So -2, +2, and the guy on the horse is, you know what? Let's just roll him and figure this out. So remember, our leader is going to be at -1 for the shock, +1 for the charge, and +1 for the ally. He is going to wind up with a total score of 9. The guy on the ground is going to be at -2 for the wounds, -1 for being on the ground. He's at 0, +1. He winds up with a total result of 1. The guy on the horse is on a horse, so he gets a +1. He winds up with a result of 6. And our leader is going to hit the guy on the horse, who's going to have to make a wound check. The differential of 3 is going to be a +1 on this die roll. The 5 becomes a 6, and that horseman is wounded, and he falls off the horse. So the little wound marker here means he is now on his feet. The guy on the ground lost by 5 points, so he has to make a wound check with a differential of 5 at +2, +2 more for the wounds that he's already got. So he's going to be at a total of +4 on this. And he gets a 5 for a shaken. Holy cats. These foot dragoons are some tough sons of guns, ain't they? That's the end of the queen. Then we look at the next card is going to be the 9 of clubs. And we might as well try to recover this guy. Yeah, that's a good one. We're going to recover him. And that means rolling. He's got to try to get rid of the shock. That's pretty much all he can do. We roll, and on a recovery roll of 3, -3 for all of his wounds and shakens, he gets a total result of 0, which means rout. And rout means he is going to stand up and run as far away as he can, I think. Or does it mean he's just taken off the board? He has succumbed to his wounds and is removed from play. He did not. That was his action there with that 9 of clubs. We have, what do we got left? We've only got one guy left, right? Oh. I feel like I dealt too many cards here. Each team has one. We're not going to use the 8 of diamonds. That's going to wind up discarded. The leader here is going to go ahead and charge down to take out this leader. Or should we take out this guy? Let's take out that guy. It's a bit cheap because I know that free reload is coming. and we want to deal with that while we can. So the horse, the charge, and that's going to be a total of +2. The ranger is going to be at a total of +1. Oh, he also has not fired yet. He's going to shoot. He's going to use his weapon in melee combat, which gives him a re-roll should he lose. Is he a veteran? The British guy, yeah, he's also a veteran. So we're going to roll these 2 dice and see what happens. Well, he's not going to need a re-roll on this one, is he? That 12 is as good as it gets. With the +2 to this die, it's a 14. This is a +1. That becomes a 9. The French have won by 5, meaning the foot dragoon has to roll on the wound chart at a +2, and a 7 becomes a 9, and he is out of action. Not only that, but our fearless leader is able to follow up on his ride down attack, and he is going to hit this guy. So that guy has already acted. In fact, all of the foot dragoons have acted, all 2 of them that are left, and that is the end of the second turn. This game kind of tends to cruise once you get the hang of it, doesn't it? Well, that's not true. This bannerman did not go. He's going to use his turn to do nothing and remove 1 shock marker. He's just going to recover. I want to push in because, man, these uniforms are too pretty. This is too good looking of an era to maintain that wide-angle shot the whole time. Maybe if this was Ottomans fighting Ottomans, we'd want to do that. But, man, with good-looking uniforms like this, on the part of the French, we are only going to get 2 cards. We've only got 2 guys left, and we're going to have 5 of them. Wait, 1, 2, 3. No, we're going to have 4 of them for the British, who are doing great. We get a 7 and an 8. That 7 gives a reroll, but before he's going to be able to use it, the British are going to get to use this king. So who do the British want to move first? And here I think we want to we could bring this guy around. Let's just attack with our leader on this dragoon. That's going to be a D12 versus, I'll bring these cards down out of the way here a little bit. The British leader now is rolling his D12. He gets a result of an 8. The guy he's fighting rolls a 6. Because he's on a horse, the leader is going to go to a 9, but he didn't charge. Because he's in the woods, the dragoon is going to go to a 7. A differential of 2 is only going to net the British cavalrymen a +0 on this wound roll. But he does score a wound roll, and that's going to be important for another reason. The 4 delivers a shock to that guy. And he says, you know what, I want to push him back 2 inches. 1, 2. Then it becomes the... who's next? Let's keep him in the shot. Keep him in the shot. I guess we have to back up a little bit more here, don't we? There we go. Yeah, boy. So he backed up just enough. That puts him in line with that rider. Unfortunately, so we got 2 8s. 8 for the British, 8 for the horses. And what that means is he's going to get to go first. So he will retreat. What will he do? He will charge back into hand-to-hand combat there in the woods. Now, he is at -1. This is the best play he's got. He is at -1 because of the shock, but he's at +1 for the charge and +1 for being in the woods that he enjoys so much. He rolls a 5, and the British rolls a 12. That's going to be a difference of 12. +1 for... Is it +1 for the horse? Either way, man, when you get up above +7... So that's 7. Is there any way to knock that down by 1 or 2? Well, let's go ahead and roll the wound check to see... Where's that D10? I guess we can roll this one. And with a 4 going up by... Well, no, this does matter, doesn't it? The shock means he's got a 1. That becomes a 5, so he is shaken. And I guess that's it. He gets double shook. And because he lost, he is once again going to get pushed out of these woods a couple of inches, which opens him up for this rider to cruise on up and charge. And now this rider is going to be at a total of +3. The Dragoon is going to be at a total of -2. It's a straight roll-off, red versus blue. The red is going to be at +3 for a 7, and the blue is going to be at -2 for a 6. So the Horseman still manages to win just by 1, but it's enough to trigger a wound check. And a 6 is going to deliver yet another... Wait a minute, that's not a shock, is it? That 6 is going to deliver a wounded result. And that's going to knock this guy down. So on his next turn, because he's got more shock markers than wound markers, he's going to have to flee. Well, he's going to have to make a recovery check, but if he succeeds, he's got to boogie on out of here. That leads us to the next card, which will be a 7, which is the leader of the Foot Dragoons over here. Never send a Foot Dragoon to do a Line Dragoon's job. And at least now, when he fights, this Foot Dragoon leader is going to... He's got to fight the guy that he's... Oh, by the way, this rider is no longer mounted. So it's going to be a D12 versus a D10. And they are both going to be at -1. They're both fighting with swords. There's no charges, so it's just a straight roll-off. The D12 versus D10, it's 8 and 8. It's a tie. Whoever initiated the combat gets to decide what happens, and I think he's just going to hang tight right where he is, and that means it is time for this Bannerman to say, you know what, I'm going to take turn 3, and I'm going to use both my actions to recover from shock once more. That becomes the end of the turn. We will shuffle the cards, and we'll circle around. Remember, this hill is the objective. These mounted dragoons... I've already shuffled. If these mounted dragoons can put the other 2 guys down, this is turn number 4, so really all I got to do is hold them off for 3 more turns. The French foot boys are going to wind up with an 8 and a 6, and then we're going to get a 3, queen, 8, and deuce for the horses. The Queen of Spades is going to be a recover from shaken. I don't think isn't that just the way? The cavalrymen don't have anybody shaken. What they do have is a leader who doesn't want to be fighting in the woods. He will ride over with that queen, and he will trample the guy that's on the ground. Now we've got one of these fun little 3-way combats. And it'll be 2 D10s and a D12. And let me just go ahead and roll the dice first, and we'll tally everything up here in a minute. The 5, of course, is our leader. And the 10 is the guy on the ground. And the 1 is going to be this dragoon as well. Now, we got a lot of modifiers, so let's take it slow. We have got a charge and a mounted. That bumps this D12 up to a 7. The 1 over here is going to be an even 1. Nope. Yep, that's an even 1. Oh, no, I'm sorry. He does get a +1. That becomes a 2 because we've got helpers. So this becomes an 8. Then this 10 for the guy on the ground is going to be subtracted by a total of 4. 1 for the wound, 2 for each of the shock, and 1 for being on the ground. So that drops down to a 6, and that makes a big difference. So let's roll the wound check for the guy on the ground first. He has to roll a D10. He gets a result of a 10. Add to the fact he's on the ground and -3, he is now out of action. However, in his dying moments, he does manage to beat this light dragoon by 6. So this figure now has to roll at a +2, and he is out. So I guess what happened is the guy on the ground was able to disembowel this rider. Unfortunately, that left him wildly exposed to this leader, and that is going to be the end of things over here on this side of the table. However, we do still have the question becomes, does this leader want to activate on the 8? Or does he want the free reload? The reload's not going to do him any good because his weapon is busted. So he's going to go on the 8 of diamonds, and that allows him to go first, which is important because he needs to win this first combat. Both sides are going to be fighting at a -1. And this becomes a 1. This is actually a D10. That one, they're both at -1, becomes a 0. This becomes a 4. That means a wound on the guy who's on the ground, remember. Wound check at -1 becomes a 4, which is shocking. And he needed a better result than that because he is done. And now both of these guys get to go. So, come to think of it, he did get a +1, but he won by 2. So even with the extra 1, it wouldn't have made a difference. So this guy's going to charge into combat. That gives him a +3. And I need a second. This purple die is the helper die. This is the primary attack. All right? And so the primary attack rolls a 12 for the defending leader, who is in the woods, but he's shocked. He results in a 12. The guy that charged in, he can stop back here because he's got a ranged attack. That ranged attack is going to be at a total of +3. 1 for the pike, 1 for the charge, 1 for the horse. That becomes an 11. And then a 12 because he's got a helper. This 1 becomes a 0, a -1, but with a helper it becomes a 0. So the 0 loses by 12. Which means the wound check on this guy, the helper boy, with a result of a 3, goes up by 3, and he is now wounded again. So that's 2 wounds to the helper guy. The even score means that he can opt to pull away, which we'll do. We'll just pull back a little bit. And that means it's time for... That was the 8 of clubs. The guy that is locked in combat is going to make an attack, and he gets a free reroll. It's going to be it's going to be kind of a straight attack. The red die is on his foot, and look at that. He gets a free reroll, and boy, does he going to take advantage of it. The 1 becomes a 1. This is why you got to roll the dice, guys. This is why you got to roll the dice. This 2 stays at a 2. This 1 is at -3. And, he lost by 2. Oh, but you know what? This is -1 as well. So it's a total differential of 2, which is nothing. But a 0 means he is out of the fight. So this leader is now outgunned by 3, but he's hanging in there. Problem is, we're moving into turn number 5, which means the Dragoons, the mounted Dragoons, have the advantage, don't they? I have shuffled these cards, but I really think that this game is over because you've got 1 guy on foot versus 3 guys on horse, and we'll cut them. That means the French get 1 card, and the British get 1, 2, 3. And no big surprise, the British are going to get to go first. The British are going to bring this bannerman down to here to charge into combat with the 9. That combat is going to be a D10 versus a D12. The 12 is at a total of 0. The D12 is at a 0. He rolls a 10. The bannerman charges, and he also gets a 10. And with that, he is able to push this leader back. It's a tie roll, so nobody gets a wound, but he does push that leader back. Then the British are going to get to move on a 6, and we'll move our leader is going to move up to here, and he's going to stop right there. Hey, I'm on your hill. What are you going to do? Then it's going to be the 3 of diamonds, and this leader of the foot dragoons is going to have to charge back into combat. But to reach combat, he's going to have... Oh, you know what? We should have pulled back that 2 inches, because that forces this leader out of the woods. So he has charged, but he's out of the woods, and he's got that funky, he's shocked. So he is going to be rolling a d12 at -1 versus a guy, oh, look at that, versus a guy on a horse who's going to be at a total of +2. We get a total of 2 versus 6. That's a 5. The guy on foot wins that. Oh, no. What did we say? It's -1, +1 for an even roll, so that's a 6. Oh, but he charged is what it was. The charge and this negate. So that's a straight up 6. Then we have a fumble on the part of this bannerman. And so the differential there is going to be 3. So we add 1 to this. That 4 means the bannerman is shocked. And that's not going to be good enough. Because on the 2, our other horse guy will be able to ride into combat. And now it's going to be the D12 versus 2 reds. And we'll have to call, this is the solid red, this is the crystal red. Both of those are at an additional +1. The leader rolls an 8. Wow, he is really taking it to these boys, ain't he? But he's injured, so he's at a 7. The guy that is solid red is going to get his customary total of +3. 1 for the charge, 1 for the mounted, 1 for the better weapon. That's a tie. And he's going to be able to push this guy back to here. And oh, he's shocked. And then we have a differential here of, oh, I'm sorry. This becomes an 8. You know what? He did win. He did win because he's got help. Because he's got help, we got to roll on the wound chart. And a 5 becomes a 6, and the leader is now wounded. And then the last action is going to... Oh, and you know what? He gets to roll 2 dice. Oh, that would be this 8. So if he can roll a 9 or a 10, it gets worse. The second one was a 5, so it doesn't make any difference. But that's going to be the end of it. Here on the 6th turn, you're going to have 2 horses curb stomping that leader. Even if he gets Delta Queen of Hearts, he's going to stand up. He's only going to be able to beat one of these guys. You've got because both of these horses are in melee, you could even pull a second one back to here, and now there's no way for the Foot Dragoon to kill both of these guys. And at the end of turn 6, the hill is going to be held by the Mounted Dragoons. Now, I'll say this. Things got off to a bad start when the Foot Dragoons opted not to take advantage of their ability to use cover to their advantage. They just didn't do it. This was a much bloodier affair than our previous experience with Fistful of Lead, Horse, and Musket. We gave our boys on the ground something to fight over. We forced them to come to grips with each other and lock horns, and had a much more interesting go of things from a combat perspective. A lot more dice rolling, and we learned a few things. As was mentioned in the comments section, you do better to follow historical tactics. One guy fires while the other guys reload. Don't have everybody shoot in the same turn. That's what the Foot Dragoons did. They kind of panicked because they were facing a lot of mounted troops. And that might have made a bit of a difference. But at the end of the day, I think this is a very fair fight. I think we've proven that you can have an interesting game of 5-on-5 with cavalry on foot troops. But you have to make sure those foot troops have something to counterbalance the effect of the cavalry. My suspicion is if we gave the cavalry an additional -1 for fighting in the trees, this would have gone about the same, because bear in mind that the goal was always take the hill. So the Foot Dragoons, the big disadvantage for the Foot Boys is that their advantage lies in standing in a terrain piece. And coming out to take on the hill, that's a problem. Maybe if we gave them more turns, they could just stand in the terrain, take advantage of the differential when being shot at and the cover, and shoot these horsemen to ribbons. That sounds like a kind of thing that might have happened historically. So an interesting game. The exact same process leads to a very historical feel. And I think this is, I think it's been a wonderful learning experience, both within the perspective of Fistful of Lead rules and within the perspective of skirmishes in the Napoleonic era. Tune in next week for another Fistful of Fridays. Until then, I am praying for you.